Welcome to the Party Line on this Friday edition. Glad to have you with us, and we do have a guest in the studio today. Debbie McDaniel is with us. Debbie, how are you?
I'm good today. It's a beautiful day.
It is a great day, isn't it?
It is.
Debbie, I love getting to focus on local artists, authors, anyone who does something like this, and you have a book out.
I do.
It's called Out with Consequences, and it is a journey out of Jehovah's Witnesses.
It is, yes.
I've read this. You gave this to me about a month ago, and so I've had. And it's a very quick read. Actually,
it is.
It's
intentionally so.
It's not it's not a huge book. It's not overly complicated. Clearly, you're an intelligent woman. I'm not suggesting anything like that, but it is an easy read for anyone.
Thank you.
And
I intentionally did that. I wanted people. It's kind of a dark story, and so I didn't want to drag that out. When I sit down to read a book, usually I want to read something that's a little happier. So the dark stuff, I needed to tell it, but I need to get it over with.
So tell folks first a little bit of what this is about, and I also want you to have in mind that I want you to tell us where they can get the book if they want a copy of their own, okay?
Okay.
So tell me about what your story's about.
Well, I lived in Houston, Texas. I was born there, wasn't to be raised there. My dad worked for the Space Center. He left the Space Center and moved to Oklahoma when he became associated with Jehovah's Witnesses. And we didn't really question him when he told us that that would involve a loss of anything that we knew. We were so little, the holidays, things like that. We would never have a birthday again, no Christmas, anything like that. Moved us down here. He chose this area because his parents lived close to here in Neshoba. They bought a house in Clayton and quickly got tired of that and moved to McAllister. Thought it was a bigger town. They were used to a bigger town like Houston, Texas. So McAllister.
Neshoba from Houston would be quite a shock, huh?
Absolutely, absolutely it was, and they tired of that pretty quickly. So we moved up here and became associated with the Jehovah's Witnesses here locally. And for anybody that doesn't know, they may think Jehovah's Witnesses is a small local organization. It is far from that. There's nearly 8 million members worldwide.
Okay, so it is global.
It's global, and it's a huge business. I know now that I've left it that it's more than a religion. It's big business. So I got associated with a congregation here where a certain elder who was basically in charge here at the time took an interest in me. I was about 8 years old. Began to molest me and molested me until I was 13. Wasn't the only person in that organization to molest me, but by far the most regular. There were several victims. We came out about that. We were young adults when we came out about it. And they decided to handle it internally. They feel like they're not obligated, that God's court is who they answer to, not local authorities. So they decided to slap him on the wrist and have him write apology letters to us and sweep that on under the rug. And as I grew older, it just got more and more difficult to be at the meetings, is what they call them. They don't call it church because they want to feel like they're separate from churches. They let him keep attending where we were, and it got so bothersome when I had a child. It just really began to creep up on me, the trauma of it. So they asked him, they realized it was becoming difficult, they asked him to go to the Wilburton congregation, which he did. And still, I had to see him at assemblies. They have assemblies at the Expo, district conventions in Oklahoma City or Tulsa, Fort Smith. It became so difficult. Well, always struggled with homosexuality. No secret about that anymore in this locale. It was a secret for a long, long time. And when I met someone and chose to have a relationship, a homosexual relationship, I was disfellowshipped from Jehovah's Witnesses, which means they make an announcement, and no one worldwide that you've met or befriended that is one of Jehovah's Witnesses is allowed to speak a word to you again.
So it's a true shunning.
True shunning, absolute sense of the word.
We're not used to that in this world these days. That's definitely something different.
Right. My mother was my very best friend in the world, and I see her probably 3 or 4 times a week, and she'll look the other direction.
She's not allowed at all
Correct.
to talk to you.
Correct. And so they set out to, not only did I walked away knowing the consequences, because I wanted to live a truer to myself life. So they set out to take my child from me, and that's when I got angry. It's every bit as much mind control, indoctrination as I've ever seen. The worst part of it was I didn't know. I thought that I was doing the best to help people come to know God by going door to door, and I raised my child that way, who's 15 now. Absolutely didn't associate with people who were not Jehovah's Witnesses. That's very much frowned on. If you're exemplary in that organization, you will not socialize with non-Jehovah's Witnesses. And I did that. So I had to get this story out. The authorities handled it here, and that's in the book.
And I have some questions on that. But
Okay.
we may have a call in, and we'll let you grab your headset so you can hear too. All right, caller, you're on Party Line. Good morning. Yeah. Oh, he is not, he is at the OAB, the Oklahoma Association of Broadcasters meeting. You can catch him Monday. He'll be back then. Sorry about that. Wasn't for us.
Okay.
Now, I did have some questions, and that reminds me, if you do have questions, listeners, you're welcome to call 918-423-1460. And toll free is 1-800-477-3327. Now, I'm not going to pretend to answer the questions. I want to ask you. It may or may not be revealed in the book, but
Okay.
So there was a person or persons who had molested you. Did you ever go to the police?
When I was disfellowshipped, I'd been disfellowshipped twice in my life. The most recent was 3 to 4 years ago. I was disfellowshipped. They began a real pressure, and I say pressure pretty lightly because it's been an absolute torturous 3 years making that decision. I didn't realize the heavy price that I was going to pay for walking away from a religion. I thought I could just walk away. But they chose to try to keep my child, and anybody that knows me knows I'm a devoted parent. I love my child more than myself. I'd give my life for her today. So when they tried to take her, that was the last straw. Well, the police had been called to our house because they claimed that if I was going to be gay, that I probably was a pedophile. And so they decided to pursue that angle of it. And they would routinely send the authorities wherever I was.
So I say church, the organization would call the police themselves and report you in some way to suggest that you were being bad.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So the police came, and there was a day that I hit a wall after a couple of years of constant crying and near suicide. I didn't want to be alive anymore because of the pressure. It was just too hard. They told my daughter that I was like a hog in a pen, that she couldn't remain morally clean and be around me. Like if you walked in a pen with a hog, you would get dirty, and the same with me. And I recognize some people in this area may very well feel in a similar way, but I'm a good mother. And so when the police came one day, that was it. That was all I could take. So I didn't sleep that night, and I walked into the police station here locally early the next morning and said, I'm not leaving here till I get somebody to listen to me, get some help. And it was with the pressure from leaving the organization. And in the course of that revealing of what was happening to me, I said, you would think the organization that let a pedophile remain among us would just let me go, would just leave me alone, because we have proof. They kept notes, all these extensive notes on how the abuse. I thought they would just let me go, that I'd had enough. And so the policeman asked me, he called a detective in, and he said, go back, tell me more about that.
Okay.
And it was like an avalanche after that.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So did this man ever do time?
He was arrested, and he went before the local courts here, and we had more than sufficient proof that he had admitted he had done these things to a variety of children, and he walked on the statute of limitations expiration.
Wow.
Yeah. Still lives here.
I personally do have trouble that there is a statute of limitations on this kind of crime. I think it should be more like murder, and that there is no statute of limitations, but that's just my opinion. So. Well,
the detective told us after all was said and done, he said they need to write new law based on your story.
Wow.
So Crystal and I, my wife and I, are very, very much advocates for the protection of children and this doing away of statutes of limitations on crimes. Children aren't comfortable coming forward with this within that statute. That's, I think, 3 years. Children don't talk about that within a 3-year time frame, and Jehovah's Witnesses won't even pursue it internally unless there was 2 witnesses. They say it's a scriptural statute that 2 witnesses had to witness that crime, and so they won't even act on it unless...
That hardly ever happens in front of witnesses,
Well, what
correct?
pedophile is going to molest somebody in front of 2 witnesses?
So this, and listening to your story, tell me why you needed to write the book?
I needed to write the book because it's unbelievable to me still what silence about something traumatic like that does to you without you even knowing it. It felt like it was eroding my insides. Set the homosexuality aside. That was lumped in with it, but even without that, to have something like that routinely happen to you, I begged to not go to this man's house on a regular basis, and they said, he's an elder, he's respected, go back. I had to say it because there's so much secrecy in that organization.
Indeed. We have another call coming in.
Okay.
Let's check this real quick. Hi, this is Party Line. Good morning. This is. Were you wanting someone in the office? Okay, 11:50 a.m. is where you need to be. 11:50 a.m. Got to turn it from FM to AM. And 11:50. Okay. All right, try another radio on it. You'll get there for us. I'm sorry, it came back to me. I got distracted with what my question was. I had a question in my head, and then it went right out. You speak very kindly of a lot of your family in this book, Debbie. I've noticed that. I know that you said at least once that you did tell some of your family, or they eventually know the story about this molester.
Oh, yes.
And they chose not only to stay in the organization, but to participate in the shunning and the disfellowship of yourself and all this. But you speak kindly of your mother, and I believe even of a brother. Is that correct?
My mother and my brother are probably two of the best people you'll ever meet in your life. My brother owns a local business here. My mother is very out of the public eye. She doesn't like to be involved in things like this, so I'm sure she's disappointed. This book is viewed as apostasy among Jehovah's Witnesses.
Sure it is.
If they even open it, they can be disfellowshipped themselves.
Oh, really?
Right, and that's considered the unforgivable sin, that my death is imminent and sure, as is yours, because you're not a baptized Jehovah's Witness. But within that organization, there truly are some of the best people you'll ever meet in your life. Giving, generous. I happen to feel like they're extremely, sadly misled, because they will absolutely do whatever the governing body in New York City, the world headquarters of Watchtower Society, where they are, if a member of that governing body tells them to do something a certain way, they will not stray from that. So I admire their dedication to it. I myself was as dedicated at one time, but I know too much now to be a party to it.
Okay. All right, we're going to talk more about this. We're going to take a quick break. If anyone has some questions, before we take a break, Debbie, let me ask you, where can people get hold of the book if they want to get a copy?
Amazon.com has them. If you're a Prime member on Amazon.com, you get free shipping on that. It's also in Kindle format. You can get it on the Kindle. And then my wife, Crystal, has copies at Legends. If they want to stop by Legends, she'll have one.
Salon.
Right.
Okay. So those two places. You can get hold of that at Amazon or in McAllister if you're not an onliner. Or you just like to get a copy faster, then you can go by Legends Hair Salon, and Crystal has copies there.
Absolutely.
Out with Consequences, Debbie McDaniel will be right back. We got some more on that. If you have a question, you know the numbers.